Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome you tonight for 10th launch of the year from the Guiana Space Center, the 6th with Ariane 5. Tonight, Ariane 5 is set to deliver into an optimized geostationary transfer orbit Arabsat-6B for Arabsat, a pan-Arab operator based in Saudi Arabia, and GSAT-15 for the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO. Our launcher will be required a performance slightly above 9.8 tons and will have a window of 43 minutes to lift off, opening precisely at 9:34 p.m. Universal Time. The mission will last around 43.5 minutes. I would like to thank Arabsat, the leading communication satellite operator of the Arab world, for entrusting Arianespace with the launch of the first satellite of its 6th generation series, the 9th since the beginning of our cooperation in 1985. Once on location at 26 degrees east, Arabsat-6B, designed and manufactured by Airbus Defence and Space and Thales Arianespace, will mainly enable to enhance Arabsat's direct-to-home television offer over Africa, Central Asia and the Middle East with its 24 Ku band and 3 Ka band transponders. I am also grateful to ISRO, a long-standing Arianespace partner since our relationship dating back to June 1981 and the launch of Apollo, first Indian-made satellite, has been uninterrupted for 34 years. Once on location at 93.5 degrees east, GSAT-15 will provide India with a variety of telecommunication services using primarily 24 Ku band transponders. Tonight, Arianespace is particularly proud to serve two governmental bodies acting in the field of space communications. Arabsat, an intergovernmental organization founded by the Arab League in 1976, and ISRO, in charge of defining and implementing a nationwide space policy on behalf of the Indian government. But our 83rd Ariane 5 is now being readied for launch, so enjoy the show.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for today's live broadcast of Arianespace flight number 227, a mission for two old friends this evening, Arabsat and the Indian Space and Research Organization. Joshua Jampo here. You can follow the broadcast in English with me or in French with our translators, Bart Aubin and Catherine Laurent. We're all coming to you live from the Jupiter Mission Control at the heart of the space base. If you're unfamiliar with Ariane, a good chance to take a close-up look. She stands 54 meters tall, weighs 775 tons, and is in two parts, a lower component and an upper one. The lower composite, including the main core stage and two boosters, so 3 power sources there. The upper component, including the single upper stage engine, the vehicle equipment bay where the computers are, and the fairing, inside of which are the 2 satellites. We will describe each of these stages in detail while they're functioning, and you can follow Ariane as she makes her way across the Atlantic. We'll have more on the satellites too. Launch window of 43 minutes, pretty standard, plenty of time. Launch time 18:34 local, 22:34 in Europe, half past midnight in Riyadh, and 3:04 a.m. in Bangalore. Some of the key players who make the mission happen. This is the Arianespace High Command, also called the Flight Directorate, headed up by Stéphane Israël. With him, Louis Laurent, the Senior VP for Programs, and Edouard Perez, the top technical officer for Ariane, the living technical memory of all the flights. And rounding out the team, Patrick Loire, who heads up the Arianespace Kourou facilities here. A series of films for you tonight. In our first, we look at our upper passenger Arabsat-6B.
Arianespace is really happy to welcome again the Arabsat operator to launch Arabsat-6B satellite through a launch services contract signed in 2009.
Arabsat is a leading satellite communications operator in the Arab world. With more than 20 member states, the organization plays a vital role of enhancing communications. Arabsat-6B, commercially named as Badr-7, is the first satellite of Arabsat 6th generation satellite series. Badr-7 will soon be joining Badr-4, 5, and 6. Airbus supplied the E3000 platform, assembled and tested the spacecraft, while TAS designed and built the communications payload. Arabsat-6B will soon give its customer a variety of services at very high quality, and no doubt it will ensure customer satisfaction.
I would like to thank all involved teams of Arabsat, Airbus Defence and Space, and Thales Alenia Space for the very efficient collaboration and teamwork spirit.
A lot still going on during these final moments of the final countdown. We've had our last weather check. There are a couple of these before launch, this final one occurring 10 minutes before liftoff. Start of the countdown here in Jupiter began this morning just after 6 a.m. All the facilities were declared to be in working order during a dress rehearsal last Thursday. A first look at our second passenger now, GSAT-15.
We are very proud and honored to be hence part of the Indian space program success story. This winning partnership between Arianespace and ISRO was started 34 years ago with the launch of Apple.
GSAT-15 is a high-power communication satellite built by ISRO. It replaces the services of INSAT-3A and augment the Ku band transponders. Apart from this, it has got Gagan payloads for satellite-based navigation services. This will be an add-on onto GSAT-8 and GSAT-10, which are already on the orbit. We have got long-standing relationship with Arianespace, more than 30 years. We are well conversant with their facilities. It is similar to our launch facility at Shore, India, but every time both will learn something new.
I would like to thank the ISRO team here in Kourou, but also in Bangalore, for the great job that we have carried out together throughout this program in preparation of this mission. And I would like also to thank ISRO for their renewed confidence they have put in Arianespace.
Another key moment in the countdown coming up, the synchronized or automatic sequence at -7 minutes, and you'll hear the DDO, this man, call out that mark.
Top à 0-7 minutes.
Jean-Luc Voyer, the DDO tonight, announcing the sequence of a complex series of operations running right down to liftoff, gradually letting the launcher become autonomous. Power is passing from the ground, which controls everything now, down to the two onboard computers, which will control everything afterward. Professionals say this is by far the most intense moment of the entire 6-week campaign. And we have a look coming up for you now on the launcher campaign. You can see how Ariane 5 is put together. Most parts of Ariane 5 left Europe, crossing the Atlantic by ship and reaching Kourou after 11 days. The launch campaign began on September 21st with the erection of the main stage in the Launcher Integration Building. The first of 2 solid boosters was transferred from its manufacturing site here at the base, and the second followed the next day. The upper stage was then mated to the Vehicle Equipment Bay. The launcher, complete but for its satellites, was then transferred to the final assembly building. The satellites arrived in French Guiana by cargo plane, GSAT-15 on September 15th and Arabsat-6B on the 2nd of October. They were transferred to clean rooms in the satellite preparation facility called S5. Here, the first operations were carried out to confirm they were compatible with their flight adapters. From October 16th to the 22nd, both satellites' fuel tanks were filled with the propellants for their flight. They were then transferred to the final assembly building where combined operations began with the launcher, beginning with the adapters, the Silda carrying structure, and the fairing. GSAT-15 was integrated directly onto the upper stage in the lower position. Arabsat-6B was placed in the Silda, then the fairing was placed over this composite. On November 6th, the Launch Readiness Review gave the green light for the now complete Ariane 5 to be transferred from the final assembly building to the launch zone, which occurred the day before launch. Here she awaits the final countdown and the start of her mission. The space base covers a lot of ground here, 750 kilometers, and a lot going on. And those activities can be summed up by the panels you see on the right there. These are a go, no-go, green-red summary of everything it takes to successfully prepare, launch, and follow Ariane. Green means we're okay. Red means the opposite. It's very simple. We get a red in any of these areas, we stop the countdown. We check these panels during the first part of the mission before lifting off. They must be green to give a go, and you can see that is the case. The status of these services, and you see them there in French, the launcher, the satellites, the weather, telemetry, and more, they're sent in here to Jupiter by the different outposts, which is why we call Jupiter the nerve center of the space base. Some 1,500 people are working around the base in all. Apart from Jupiter, one place is very busy is right here, the Launch Control Center, where the launch management teams are working under the direction of the Launch Operations Manager. Tonight, André Sicard, who is a veteran, this man. 4 teams are working together up there. One is responsible for launch operations, a second for flight readiness of the Ariane launcher, and a third team following the countdown from a quality point of view, according to established procedures, and a fourth team overseeing safety of people and facilities in the launch zone. In all, about 100 people up there. Closer to the pad than we are here in Jupiter. We're about 13, 14 kilometers away. They're right under the shadow of the launch vehicle, about 1 kilometer or 2. And their control center there has walls 1 meter thick of reinforced concrete. They carry out all the checks and validations right down to liftoff. That will let the mission begin tonight, due to happen in just 3 minutes. Once the launcher has left the pad, their work is done. Some other things we have to take into account before launching. A French Space Operations Act passed in 2008 makes it mandatory to prove that you are preventing any possible collision with the International Space Station. The ISS flies at 400 kilometers up at about 27,000 kilometers an hour, making a pass around the Earth every hour and a half. So sometimes if the ISS is in Ariane's projected flight path, the launch window is changed. That is not the case tonight, however. You see the yellow bars right in the middle of your screen. Those are the propellant feeder arms. We're going to get a close-up shot of them in a minute. You'll get a better look. What they're doing is they're putting propellant into the upper stage tanks. Liquid hydrogen lines on the left. Here's the close-up split screen image. Liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. Now you'll see these arms pull back at 5 seconds before ignition. We monitor the arms and we fill the cold cryogenic fuel right down to the last minute because it boils off in the weather here. We just like to take a minute and describe it because it's one of the last things you're going to see before liftoff. And the weather, you may be asking. Well, it's been pretty good. Usually the final quarter of the year is the driest out here, not necessarily the hottest, but it's been dry. We haven't had much rain. We have clear skies, so we should have a beautiful liftoff. We want to say hello to all our friends watching at ISRO in Bangalore, or should we say namaste to all of you, and also to everyone across the country following the broadcast via Doordarshan. Hello also to Arabsat members at headquarters in Riyadh and the 2 control stations
À tous de DDO, attention pour H0 moins 1 minute.
in Riyadh and Tunis. The DDO is going to call out the 1 minute mark, and we'll be into the final 60 seconds.
Top, H0 moins 1 minute.
Just time enough to explain the final ignition sequence, starting when those cryogenic arms pull back. The yellow bars, remember, that gets the ball rolling. Here's what to watch for. At H0, the DDO will usually call out something like allumage volcan. That's the ignition of the main stage, but we don't lift off yet. There will be a 7-second wait while the onboard computer is checking the performance of the main engine. It does this twice. If all is well, it gives the order to light the 2 boosters, and we're off. And we will cut away and let you watch. Final countdown. We'll be back once Ariane has cleared the tower. Enjoy the liftoff, everybody.
À tous de DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage EAP, décollage.
Well, we are underway. Did you watch the arms pull back as scheduled? And did you count to 7? After those 7 seconds, a slight wait, and then boom, away we go. You saw Ariane 5 begin her mission, rising off the ground here in French Guiana, leaving a trail of gold, and right on time. 1834 local with their 2 passengers, Arabsat-6B, also known as VA227, and GSAT-15. The boosters are providing 92% of the thrust right now, propelling the launcher along its trajectory at an ever higher velocity, getting her away from the pull of the Earth. And there is a lot to pull. Ariane's weight at liftoff, 775 tons, and most of that is fuel. She's burning 2 tons of fuel per second. She's now following the flight program in the onboard computer, which gives all the commands, including the separations. We'll soon begin to see those. We are in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered, the last is not. We'll describe each in turn. Right now, the first flight phase, the Vulcan engine and the 2 boosters are burning. The boosters will burn their propellant in just under 2.5 minutes. They're the first that will be jettisoned. You'll hear the DDO call out that milestone as he calls out right now. Everything is okay on board. We're heading east out over the Atlantic. The decision to build the site here in French Guiana, made in the 60s when France wanted a new base, was in part made for its opening on the water to allow for launches over uninhabited areas. On the bottom of your screen, our altitude on the left and our speed on the right. We need a speed at orbital injection about 9 kilometers per second. Our altitude will be about 1,000 kilometers up for our first passenger, so watch for those numbers. You just saw the flame out of the boosters. You can see them falling away. The white dot below them is the main engine, which continues to burn. You can see what it looks like up there. The boosters are jettisoned. There's a second one out of camera range on the left. What happens is the onboard computer detects there's no more fuel in the tanks. As they have no more propellant to burn, thrust decreases and the computer senses the drop in acceleration, decides to separate them. A nice shot of the main stage burning and the 2 boosters falling away. 3 points of light as the DDO calls out all is okay on board. We say 67 kilometers altitude, for instance. That's the altitude where the boosters were jettisoned. Sometimes it might not be the figure you see on the screen. This is quite normal due to a slight delay in the telemetry coming in here. Coming up on separation of the fairing, due in just about a second or 2. And you'll see that on the animation. You may be able to see it on the camera that we have here. There it is. You see the other 2 points of light falling away. Wonderful shots. The sky is just so clear tonight. On the onboard camera, you see what happens there. There's another half out of camera range on the right. Separation is given by 2 pyrotechnical systems. One is horizontal, one's vertical. They're cords that actually remove the fairing by a small controlled explosion. With the fairing gone, you have exposed to the elements Arabsat-6B. Underneath that, a black bell-shaped structure, which is called the Silda. That's a carrying structure, which houses our second passenger. Underneath that is GSAT-15. We can separate the fairing now because we're out of the dense layer of the atmosphere. Over 100 kilometers up, there's neither friction nor heating, which could disturb the passengers, so we discard also any dead weight. The fairing weighs over 2 tons. And it's lined, by the way, with acoustic panels that protect the satellite from the noise of the engines at liftoff. Our speed is what's important right now, which is the role of the main stage. Cryogenic propellant, not only highly efficient, but provides a push that can last for a long time. There are different propulsion systems on Ariane 5. Cryogenics, as used in the main stage, are more efficient than solid propellant, which is used in the boosters. Basically, solids are for getting us off the ground, away from the pull of the Earth, while cryogenics are for more precision orienting of the vehicle. And of course, they allow a stage to be reignited in another version of Ariane. On the right is Arabsat-6B. Below that is the Silda. Below that, the white bands were the vehicle equipment bay and the upper stage. And below that is the first stage. Ariane 5, the heavy lift launcher, 2 other members of the family Soyuz lifting middle-sized payloads, 2 and 3 tons. And Vega, a 1-ton light launcher. We're going to go to our first replay of shots of liftoff that happened just 5 minutes ago. Always exciting to relive those moments of liftoff. We have cameras at several of the half-dozen observation sites that are stationed across the base here, and they furnish us with shots from different angles. We should be getting their footage in just a moment. Some figures. This is the 83rd mission for the Ariane 5. The two passengers are the 168th and 169th satellites to be launched by Ariane 5, as the DDO continues to say all is working flawlessly on board. They are also the 401st and 402nd satellites to be launched on a version of the Ariane launcher. Remember, the program began with an Ariane 1 in 1979. It flew until 1986. Ariane 2, the first upgrade, was in service from 1986 to 89. Ariane 3, even more powerful, worked from 1984 to 89. And Ariane 4, the real workhorse, flew from 1988 to 2003 before being retired. Ariane's radar and telemetry signal in about 30 seconds is going to be picked up by our first downrange tracking station. That's at Natal, over the border in Brazil. Natal will see the lower stage burnout and separation of the lower stage, as well as the upper stage ignition. All of Ariane's trajectory has been designed to be followed from the ground. The launcher is sending radar and telemetry back and a network of stations keeping constant watch on the health of her systems. Telemetry being the launch vehicle data, information on 1,500 parameters being collected and transmitted back to these ground stations. Every second, they're being sent by two transmitters inside the vehicle equipment bay and by the antennas which lie outside. These include indicators of Ariane's health and performance in flight, and they come from pressure and temperature sensors which record all her functions throughout the flight. And what do we do with all this information? Well, some of it is analyzed in real time. Customers get immediate information about their spacecraft, which is important. Other data are analyzed after the flight to learn how the vehicle has performed. A complete analysis is carried out about a week after each launch. You can imagine the enormous archives this gives Arianespace, a wealth of technical information going back to the very first launch of Ariane 1 on Christmas Eve 1979. We are awaiting confirmation of extinction of the first stage. You will see on the left the blue flame on the cartoon animation. You'll see that die down. You'll hear the DDO, of course, call out that milestone. The Vulcan engine, roughly 50 centimeters, weighing 250 kilos, can generate with the boosters enough power to launch Ariane 5. Remember, over 90% of the initial thrust is provided by the two boosters. There you saw the first stage engine shut down, right on time and announced by the DDO. And there's the separation of the first stage. And there you saw the ignition of the upper stage. All these three commands given by the onboard computer in about 12 seconds. The main stage, as you can see, separated and will fall back into the Atlantic off the coast of Africa. Up in space, all is working fine on board Ariane. Our speed approaching 7 kilometers per second. Our altitude over 170 kilometers per second. With separation of the lower stage, Ariane 5 has used up all of its 175 tons of propellant. She now loses another 14,000 kilos of dry mass, bringing her total weight down to 25 tons from the original, remember, 775 tons. We're now in the third and final powered flight phase, a 16-minute burn for the upper stage. It'll burn until plus 24 minutes and 56 seconds. Job of the upper stage is to take the satellites to their injection point, position them for separation, and release them into space. She has another job. We'll get back to that in a minute. But for now, over to Arabsat's CEO for a word on the satellite.
La trajectoire est nominale.
Dear friend and colleague, good evening. from Kourou. We're a few moments from the launch of our Badr-7 satellite, which is part of our sixth generation program. Badr-7 is a huge satellite with the latest technology on board that will have Ka and Ku band spectrum to enhance our services to our customers and viewers in the region. Badr-7 will have coverage of all Africa, Europe, and Middle East, and it will add a lot of capacity to our existing Badr fleet at 26 degrees east, which is our neighbor hotspot for our neighborhood in Arabsat. And we have come to this moment with a great effort, and I'd like to thank all our partners, Ariane, Airbus, Thales, and not to forget our technical team and consultant who have developed this program and came to this conclusion. Thank you all, and good luck.
With ignition of the upper stage, we're into the second half of the mission. We can look more closely at the satellites. Arabsat-6B, Badr-7 in the upper berth will be separated first, due at plus 2717. Arabsat's fleet, providing over 500 TV channels, 200 radio stations, pay TV networks, high-definition channels, reaching tens of millions in more than 100 countries, including the Mideast, Africa, Europe, and Central Asia, including in audiences of over 170 million in the 21 Arab countries alone. Ariane 5 carrying Arabsat-6 and GSAT-15, the world's leader in launch operations, tonight lifting satellites for two of the world leaders in satellite communications. Arianespace orbiting telecommunication satellites on this mission, but the family also delivers satellites with many other missions. The first flights of this year showed that. We'll be back with more, but our next film on the builder of Arabsat-6B, Airbus Defence and Space.
Acquisition de la télémesure à la station Ascension.
And while you were watching that film, we were picked up by our next downrange tracking station. That's Ascension Island in the South Atlantic. Arabsat-6B, Badr-7, is the 113th satellite made by Airbus and its predecessors. There are 10 others in the Arianespace order book. Thales Alenia Space designed the payload. We'll be hearing from Thales Alenia Space in just a moment. Badr, by the way, means full moon. And it's the 9th satellite launched by Arianespace for Arabsat. The first, Arabsat-1A, launched on our Flight 12 back in 1985 on an Ariane 3. Tonight is also the first of a new generation and entirely dedicated to telecommunications and direct-to-home service for the Mideast and Africa. The Ariane 5 program began back in '96. Double launches are its specialty, and tonight, no exception. As promised, a film now on the builder of Arabsat-6B's payload, Thales Alenia Space.
We have been working with Arabsat for 30 years and delivered all of their payloads and their first 3 generations of satellites. So today's launch is a very important one for a strategic customer of TAS. Not only is Arabsat-6B Badr 7 one of the most powerful satellites in the Arabsat fleet, it is also essential to the business development of Arabsat in the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia. During our 30 years of collaboration, Arabsat has become a major player in satellite services. A lot has happened in the markets during that time. They have become increasingly sophisticated. To address this, we have given Arabsat-6B Badr 7's payload a unique Ka multi-beam, high-throughput design. And we have used also breakthrough technologies, such as compact antenna feed arrays and additive manufacturing or 3D printing. This makes Arabsat-6B Badr 7 a truly high-tech satellite, benefiting Arabsat's impressive business. We are also delighted to continue our fruitful collaboration with Arabsat as prime contractor for Elasat-3, currently under construction. I want to thank Arabsat for their trust and all the teams from Thales Arianespace, Airbus Defence and Space, Arianespace for their work and commitment. My very best wishes to Arabsat and their customers.
During that film, we were picked up by our next tracking station downrange, Libreville, Gabon, on the west coast of Africa. Receives telemetry for 15 minutes and will see the upper stage burn out. The Arabsat company is the leading regional telecom operator in the Mideast, founded in 1976. Arianespace has launched 62% of its fleet. There's another Arabsat in the Arianespace order book, Arabsat-3, mentioned by Jean-Luc Le Gall in the film. For the affiliate, it's a nearly wholly owned subsidiary of Arabsat's. After tonight, 3 more satellites are planned for the period 2015 to 2018, and 2 more are under review. Arabsat expecting to grow the fleet to 12 in 5 years. A word now from Arabsat-6B's builder Airbus and chairman François Auque.
With Arabsat-6B, Arabsat will operate the 7th Eurostar platform. It's a particular honor and pleasure for Airbus Defence and Space to have been selected together with Thales Alenia Space to build this satellite. And I would like to thank Arabsat for their trust. I would like also to convey my thanks and recognition to the fantastic teams of Airbus and, of course, our partner, Thales Alenia Space. And it's for me also the opportunity to congratulate Arabsat for the outstanding success of this organization and to congratulate specifically our very respected customer, and I would say with time, friend, Khaled Balkayour. And now it's time for me to say to Arabsat-6B, Badr 7, have a nice flight and a nice and successful travel into space.
Turning to our second passenger now, GSAT. GSAT-15 is the 19th ISRO satellite launched by Arianespace. It'll offer telecom services as well as navigation and disaster help when it becomes part of the ISRO fleet. 13 satellites in the fleet today. Arianespace and ISRO have been partners for 30 years. Their relationship goes back to 1981, Flight 3, one of the Ariane 1 qualification flights, which delivered a small communication satellite called Apple, which weighed 670 kilos. Compare that with GSAT-15 weighing in over 3 tons tonight. ISRO founded in 1969 with a goal to harnessing space technology for national development, and it really has one of the largest space agencies in the world. 129 missions, including the latest successful launch on October 27th. We go now to ISRO CEO, Mr. Kiran Kumar, for words on GSAT-15.
Indian National Satellite System, which was established in the early 80s, is today one of the largest domestic communication satellite systems in the Asia-Pacific region. It presently comprises of 12 satellites which are providing services in S, C, Extended C, and Ku bands. The launch of GSAT-15 will be one more step towards further strengthening the satellite navigation infrastructure and sustaining the communication infrastructure in the country. The spacecraft is configured around a well-proven I-3K bus, and it weighs 3,164 kg at liftoff and carries 24 high-power Ku-band transponders with India beam and a Gagan payload with the Indian region coverage. The Ku-band payload of the GSAT-15 will significantly ensure sustainability of the DTH transponders of the INSAT system, and Gagan, which is the GPS-based geo-augmented navigation system, provides satellite-based augmentation services for use by the aircrafts. Through the accuracy of the positioning information obtained from GPS satellites, improved by a network of ground receivers, and is made available to the users in the country. Gagan was earlier also deployed through GSAT-8 and 10 satellites. GSAT-15 Gagan payload will provide in-orbit backup for this service. The spacecraft, which was shipped for launch site at Kourou, French Guiana, in the end of September, has gone through the complete pre-launch verification and has been integrated with the launch vehicle. And on 11th November, around 3 a.m. Indian Standard Time, the satellite will be launched into a geostationary transfer orbit by Ariane 5 VA227 launch vehicle. It will be stationed at 93.5 degree east longitude above equator and will provide continuous service for more than 12 years.
We're now being followed by our final tracking station at Malindi in Kenya, on the east coast of Africa. Ariane 5 crossing Africa in about 5 minutes. There's a lot of cooperation between India and France, 50 years of it, as a matter of fact. Tonight, Arianespace launching for India, but it works the other way around as well. Megatropique, a joint satellite mission between the two countries, studied the water cycle and energy in the tropics, launched by ISRO's PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, in 2011. Another, called Saral Altica, studied the oceans, also launched by PSLV in February of 2013. Arianespace reaching her maximum speed now, 9.34 kilometers per second. By the time she separates Arabsat-6B at plus 2717, 3 minutes to go, she'll be moving at 9 kilometers per second. At Silda separation at plus 30 minutes, speed drops to 8.5 kilometers per second. We've had cutoff right on time of the upper stage engine. The powered flight phase of the upper stage ends when the onboard computer judges that the targeted orbit has been attained, and we are coasting now. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The composite is being maneuvered and spun in a series of dozen operations ranging in time from a second to over a minute. And you can see the composite is moving. You might be able to see the nozzles popping on and off, controlling the spin. The attitude and control systems using these small thrusters to perform the maneuvers. They have quite a job to do in the next 8 minutes or so. What they have to do is orient the composite in the direction and altitude required by the first satellite, then separate it. Then they must start again a second series of moves to orient and separate the Silda in another direction and at another altitude. And finally, they do the same for the lower passenger. Arabsat-6B will be separated at 1,013 kilometers, the Silda at 1,600 kilometers, and GSAT-15 at over 4,700 kilometers. All this is done, you can imagine, to keep the satellites and Silda from colliding with each other. They call it a space ballet. Space ballet in the trade, not a bad description. The upper stage runs on cryogenic fuel, more sophisticated than solid fuel. As we mentioned, it can provide the precision, not the raw power. And a precise injection of the spacecraft, which is what the composite is preparing for right now, means a lot in terms of performance, but also affects the lifetime of the satellite. It uses its own onboard propellant to get to its orbital slot. It has, of course, fuel left over to live in space. We're coming up on confirmation of separation of our first passenger, Arabsat-6B 2717. Always a moment of high concentration. The teams have gone through these procedures before, but it does call for tremendous focus. All eyes on the computer screens now.
Séparation Arabsat-6B.
There we have the first good news. Successful delivery of our upper passenger, Arabsat-6B, also known as Badr-7, right on time over the east coast of Africa. You notice people in the hall very politely holding their applause until the second passenger. Now that the Arabsat has been separated, the early operation maneuvers acquisition by Riyadh should come in about a minute. Solar array deployment starting in about 6 days. There will be 4 apogee motor firings from the first day out to the 6th day out. Antenna deployment beginning in about a week. Payload switch on in about 12 days. And then the payload and the platform testing. While we have a minute, we can go to the quiz question. What do you say? It concerns both the satellites. See if anybody out there can get this one. Listen up. Claude Berna, Arianespace, has made this info available. Thank you, Claude. Here's the question. Our 2 passengers tonight have an interesting link. They have not flown together before, but there was one Arabsat launched by Ariane, which was later transferred to INSAT and became part of the Indian fleet. ISRO does not count it as one of its own home-built satellites. Can you give us the name of the satellite, the date it was launched, or the date it was transferred? Again, Arianespace quiz question number 227. One Arabsat was launched by Ariane and later transferred to the Indian fleet. Can you give us its name, the date it was launched, or the date it was transferred? Give you the answer in a minute. While you're thinking, the ballistics phase continues. All maneuvers in this phase are programmed, of course, in advance. The information stored in the onboard computer. The launcher knows precisely what it has to do, where it is, where it's going at all times. The first part of the ballistics phase will terminate with release of our second satellite, GSAT-15. That's due at plus 43 minutes and 20 seconds, so we still have some time. Before that, however, the Silda separation, that's due up in about a minute. You'll hear the DDO confirm that. Separation marks an end as well as a beginning, of course. It's the end of the launch vehicle's mission for the satellite. I'm speaking of Arabsat-6B now. But it also marks the beginning of the satellite's own life. Before explaining how a satellite is separated, first, an idea of how it's attached to the upper stage. Satellite is basically a cylinder. The cylinder is fixed on an adapter by a clamp which encircles the cylinder and keeps it in place on the adapter. Separation is triggered by the clamp, which is cut at one point and becomes loose. This frees the satellite from the adapter and releases 8 springs, which push the satellite forward. When the satellite moves away from the mothership, This activates two switches signaling separation, and it's this information that's transmitted to the ground and comes in here to us. With the first satellite separated, its teams are already at work on the first operations. GSAT teams here in the hall still very concentrated and will be until separation has been confirmed. We're waiting for separation of the Silda. That should be coming up in just a second or two.
Séparation du système de lancement double Ariane.
And DDO has just confirmed that the Silda has been separated. You see what it looks like on the animation, just like the satellites pushed away by the series of springs from the mothership, revealing GSAT-15. The composite loses another 445 kilos. It burned up 14 tons of fuel in the upper stage. All that's left now, the vehicle equipment bay, 1 ton, GSAT-15, 3 tons roughly, and a couple of 100 kilos of adapters down from the original, remember, 775 tons at liftoff. So the weight to power yield with this system, or most systems, is 1%, the launcher weighing 100 times more than the satellite it carries. We're still in the space ballet. We mentioned how Ariane 5 is sending constant radar and telemetry back down to Earth. One of the reasons the Kourou site was chosen, you need hills near the launch site where radar and telemetry facilities can be installed to follow the launcher. And this is one of them. This is a facility south of the space base, high on a hill with excellent visibility. It's called the CVI. CVI means the Immediate Visual Control Center. And those teams up there right now, they have all the means for receiving, processing, and storing the data coming in from Ariane to the ground. They are following and analyzing the flight data. They report Ariane 5's flight status to the team back here in Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter Mission Control in constant contact with all the facilities needed for launching and following Ariane. The displays at the facility you see there, the facility called Galileo, allow us to check the main parameters concerning propulsion, piloting, and trajectory. We can also give customers a first round of information, which is called an orbital diagnosis when separation occurs, and the complete post-launch analysis performed here about a week after launch. If you just joined us, we've had successful separation of our first passenger Arabsat-6B and separation of the Silda. We're waiting for separation of our second passenger GSAT-15 in about 10 minutes. Europe's space effort is a three-way affair among the European Space Agency, the French Space Agency CNES, and Arianespace. You find them all here, along with customers. Very generally, Arianespace markets and operates the launch services and the Ariane program, ESA funding the new programs, and CNES overseeing coordination of all space-based operation. You see the operational teams, but in fact, to launch Ariane or Soyuz or Vega, we also need security, support from the Army, firefighters, many other professions. If you've been down here, you've seen them across the space base. This version of Ariane 5 used mainly for commercial launches into what they call geostationary transfer orbit. There's another version which is used for other orbits like low Earth, polar, or sun-synchronous orbits. This is the reignitable version that we mentioned. A last film now on GSAT-15, the customer's friend, then back with separation of GSAT-15. Don't go away.
Indian National Satellite System, which was established in the early 80s, is today one of the largest domestic communication satellite systems in the Asia-Pacific region. It presently comprises of 12 satellites which are providing services in S, C, Extended C, and Ku bands. The launch of GSAT-15 will be one more step towards further strengthening the satellite navigation infrastructure and sustaining the communication infrastructure in the country.
Over past several decades, ISRO has meticulously designed and developed indigenous communication satellite system consisting of INSAT and GSAT series of satellites. These made by and made in India satellites have played a significant role in providing infotainment with telecommunications and television broadcasting to the common man of India. It also helps in making people's lives safer through services like weather forecasting, disaster warning, navigation, and search and rescue operations. The launch vehicle puts the satellite in the highly elliptical 250 km by 36,000 km orbit called as the Geotransfer Orbit, or GTO. After that, a series of maneuvers using the liquid apogee motors take the satellite to the intended geostationary orbit. The increasing need of communication round the clock across India demanded advanced communication satellite. GSAT-15 is state-of-the-art, high-power communication satellite designed to address those needs. It is built on the I3K bus, carries 24 Ku-band transponders and a GPS-aided geo-augmented navigation Gagan payload consisting of two C-X-L-band transponders transmitting in L1 and L5 bands to assist aircraft navigation. The transponders for the INSAT and GSAT series of communication satellites and various onboard and ground testing instruments are designed, developed and tested at the Space Applications Center in Ahmedabad. ISAC Bangalore does the mission planning and bus system design and realization, while ISRO Inertial Systems Unit provides the inertial reference unit and momentum wheels. The propulsion system and LAM is provided by Liquid Propulsion Systems Center, while the CMSC contributed antenna reflectors and solar panels. The Master Control Facility is responsible for post-launch operations, in-orbit testing and maintenance for GSAT-15. The spacecraft's primary structure consists of interface ring, central thrust cylinder, equipment panels, Earth and anti-Earth view decks, two intermediate decks, and shear webs. Bipropellant propulsion system employing 16 thrusters with a LAM and two 780-litre propellant tanks. Telemetry tracking and command TTC packages cater for health monitoring and commanding of the satellite. Attitude and Orbit Control System AOCS provides 3-axis stable platform using momentum wheels, thrusters, magnetic torquers and inertial units. The pyrotechnic devices are used for deployment of the power system of two solar arrays with 3 panels each on both the sides, generating around 6,000 watts of power. Lithium-ion batteries are used during eclipse. Thermal control system maintains uniform temperature across the payload. The Ku-band payload has two dual-gridded reflector DGR antennas on east and west side, while the Gagan has one C-band receive antenna and one L-band transmit antenna. The Ku-band receivers and Gagan payload subsystems are accommodated on the Earth view panel under and top side. The south and north panels accommodate the high-power subsystems of 12 Ku transponders. The spacecraft has a lift-off mass of about 3,164 kilograms and a dry mass of 1,440 kilograms and is designed for mission life of 12 years. The launch is scheduled from Kourou, French Guiana in November 2015. The GSAT-15 spacecraft will be located at 93.5 degree east geo slot and will be providing and augmenting direct-to-home and other services like multimedia, interactive classroom, large data transfer over the Indian mainland coverage. This would also provide in-orbit backup for the GPS-aided geo-augmented navigation Gagan, a system to support all phases of flight over Indian airspace and adjoining areas and coverage over Indian region. With each such launch, one can safely say that the vision of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai to use space technologies for the benefit of common man is further continued.
Going back to the Visual Control Center teams you saw a moment ago, the French Guiana site here was chosen in 1964 for other reasons, along with the nearby hills for telemetry reception. It offers advantage opening on the ocean to make possible flying both north and east, and over an area offering low risk to the population. There is a low population density, 250,000 people in French Guiana. Most of the nation is forest. It also offers nearness to the equator, which is interesting. This allows a launch to benefit from the Earth's rotation to get more quickly into orbit. They call it the sling effect because the Earth turns more quickly at the equator than at the poles. There are also no hurricanes or earthquakes as can strike in other parts of the world. One other interesting note, all the systems we've been talking about on the launcher, energy systems, propellant, batteries, they all have a sell-by date. If they're not used by these limits, they get thrown out. There's a similar system on airplanes, in your car, and on the yogurt in your refrigerator also. On Ariane, it covers everything from turbo pumps to screws. In the vehicle equipment bay, for example, it applies to some of the clamp bands that hold the satellites in place inside the fairing because they work with a system of spring compression, and the tension in the springs could go lax with time. Waiting for separation of our second passenger, coming up in about a minute. Every once in a while, we like to give you an update on a spacecraft launched by Arianespace. You know, so often we don't talk about them much after they've been put into orbit. They live their lives and provide service to so many people. But you may remember Rosetta, the European Space Agency probe launched by Ariane 5 in 2004. Rosetta spent 10 years flying 270 million kilometers toward the comet Kourou, finally landing about a year ago, providing all kinds of amazing pictures and data. You might have seen in the papers this week, Rosetta has discovered oxygen on the comet, which they did not expect, between 4 and 10% apparently in the comet's tail. Molecular oxygen, which scientists think predates our solar system, speculating it may have been imprisoned in ice crystals. Well, waiting for separation of our second passenger in about 10 seconds, GSAT-15. We're in the final flight phase and coasting. We're nearly there. Again, one of those moments of high concentration for everyone here. Representing months, years of work.
Séparation GSAT-15.
And there you have it, the final good news. To applause all round, Ariane 5 has successfully separated her second passenger, GSAT-15, right on target at 4,734 kilometers over the Indian Ocean. So from the tense moments just minutes ago, you see the change here in Jupiter. Very buoyant. Work is just beginning, or soon will be, at the different ground stations for GSAT-15. The LEOPS acquisition by Hassan, that's their Indian station, they were right over India, so they should have had acquisition at separation. Partial solar array deployment in about 2 hours. There will be 3 apogee motor firings at plus 25 hours, plus 56 hours, and in about 3 days. Station acquisition operation in about 7 days. You see on the animation what that looks like. Again, pushed away from the mothership and beginning her life. We are awaiting now for the traditional post-launch speeches. We'll be hearing from Stéphane Israël, chairman of Arianespace, also from Arabsat, Airbus, Thales Arianespace, the ISRO Satellite Center, and the CSG. While you're watching the replay, did you get the answer to the quiz question? Which Arabsat was launched by Ariane, later transferred to INSAT? Can you give us its name, its launch date? or the date it was transferred? The answer, Arabsat-1C. Yes, of course. Launched by an Ariane 4 on Flight 49, February 1992. Transferred to INSAT in 1997. And with its new name, INSAT-2D, lived until the end of its life, which was in 2004. So if you got any of the answers, give yourself a round of applause, and you get to watch the rest of the launch replay. While the podium and the microphones are being set up for our speakers, those people working in the fishbowl will shortly be making their ways out to join us here in Jupiter on the other side. Mr. Israel, chairman of Arianespace, no doubt extending and receiving congratulations, shaking hands all around, maybe exchanging cigars with colleagues. That's something of a tradition here. You've no doubt, while we're waiting, heard about Ariane 6. The Target 2020 program has been put in place, a contract signed last August by ESA, European Space Agency, and Airbus Safran launchers for the launcher system, another contract signed by ESA and CNES for the base. I see Mr. Israel has emerged. He is on this side, shaking hands with some of the customers, smiles all around, and he'll be making his way to the podium to begin the first of the speeches. The next voice you hear will be Stefan Israel. Mr. Israel, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Préfet, Mesdames et Messieurs les élus, ladies and gentlemen, dear customers, distinguished guests. Arianespace is delighted to announce that Arabsat-6B and GSAT-15 were separated as planned on the targeted optimized geostationary transfer orbit. Once again, Ariane 5 has made the job in 2015. 6 successes out of 6 missions, 6 successes multiplied by 2. It is the miracle of the dual launch. It's a dual success. Vive Ariane! Arianespace is happy to celebrate this Ariane 5 69th success in a row with 2 of its long-standing customers, Arabsat and ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. In upper position, Arabsat-6B, soon renamed VA227, is the 9th satellite launched by Arianespace for Arabsat. Our company started their cooperation 30 years ago and only met with successes together. Tonight, we are proud to contribute to Arabsat growth with the launch of the first of its 6th generation satellites, and so continue our win-win relationship, the next satellite to be launched for Arabsat being Elasat-4 in 2017. I just want to express my deepest gratitude to Arabsat for the trust placed in Arianespace, and doing so, I express this gratitude to Khalid Balkeyur, its President and Chief Executive Officer. I know he's seeing the launch tonight for sure, and to Moued Al-Zarani, its Chief Technical Officer, Moued being with us tonight in the CSG. Thanks. Let me also congratulate Airbus Defence and Space and Thales Alenia Space, Arabsat-6B bus and payload manufacturers, our direct customers in the frame of this turnkey contract. Both are long-standing Arianespace partners, Arabsat-6B being the 256th satellite of either company orbited by our launch vehicle family. As a second passenger on this flight, GSAT-15 is the 90th satellite launched by Arianespace for ISRO. When referring to our friends of ISRO, I can think of no better word than faithful. In 34 years of cooperation, Arianespace has indeed orbited more than 90% of Indian geostationary satellites not assigned to domestic vehicles. So many thanks to Mr. Kiran Kumar, ISRO's chairman, and to Dr. Anand Durai, director of the ISRO Satellite Center, ISAC, who attended the launch from Jupiter Control Center, for continuing this long-term partnership with Arianespace and with France overall, France having launched 4 satellites with the PSLV in the last 5 years. On this special occasion, I would thus like to pay tribute to the Indian space policy and to its outstanding achievements both on satellites and on launch vehicles, including the first successes of the GSLV. Tonight's launch was Arianespace's 270th mission. It was also the 10th conducting in 2015 from the Guiana Space Center, and the last for Ariane 5 this year. With 2 additional launches scheduled next month, using Vega and Soyuz respectively, we are getting close to a new operational record for our family, with 12 missions in 1 calendar year. Launch after launch, we are demonstrating our capability to increase our operational pace while remaining the most reliable solution for all our customers. To conclude, let me congratulate all the European staff, which has again performed an outstanding job to deliver this launch. Whether you are in continental Europe or in French Guiana, whether you belong to the industrial teams led by Airbus Safran launchers, whether you work for ground industrialists here on site, for CNES or for the European Space Agency, you are all part of this mission to success. Tonight, particularly, I want to pay special tribute to Arianespace team, whose exceptional mobilization has enabled the performance of 10 successful launches already in 2015. You deserve that the full moonlight of BADR-7 is first shed on you, and thanks to you, our honeymoon with our customers will last for decades. Indeed, let me now leave the floor to our customers, first from Arabsat and then from ISRO. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Stefan. First of all, I'd like to thank God, for this event. This is really a successful, and this is really a pleasant night. We just signed the birth, certificate, for Badr-7, which will go for 19.7 years of service and really adding a lot of value to Arabsat. Thanks to Ariane staff and management. Thank you to Airbus staff and management and technical teams. Also, to Thales, Linia. Thanks to the technical staff and also all the team of Arabsat who made it really possible, who made it really help, to really get this successful comes through. I feel today that, Arabsat is really adding another satellite, which really will be coming 7th satellite. We do have a plan, as you heard, from the management, that 3 satellites will be added within the next 3 years. Another 2 satellites is really under kind of technical studies. We will be seeing 12 satellites coming in 5 years. This will put us in number 5. We were 5 years back. We were number 11. Now we are in 6. As as the category or the ranking of satellite operators, we look seriously to have more and more of coverages, value-added services, to the customers, and also to see that, we have served as a global satellite operators. I cannot forget to thank Khalid Belkhour, who was supposed to be here, the president of Arabsat. In the last minute, he apologized. I think you saw him, on the screen. I like to, on behalf of my staff who came here, that to say thank you all. Thank everybody who comes here and share with us this kind of pleasant moment. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's always the same emotion when we go out and watch this launcher lift off. See the light first and then the sound. I don't know how you feel, but for me it's been several times now, and it's always the same emotion. I hope that there are many young people who are watching this and will become fans of space, and that they will join that fantastic community that what we share. When it comes to, when I think about today, and I'm trying to think about a word for Ariane and Arianespace, the word perfection comes to mind. What else to say? I mean, we saw everything green, all the preparation work, bringing this success today. It's perfection is not of this world, but it's coming close when it comes to Arianespace. So congratulations to the team and our Arianespace team, but also congratulations to all the men and women who are working hard in many factories in Europe, mainly to deliver that launcher, which is breaking records after records. As was mentioned in the film, as was mentioned by Mouid, Arabsat has been growing fantastically, going from 11th position to 6th, if this means something, but we're not into competition there, but I think that growth is really fantastic, and to the credit of the management team. I really would like to congratulate Khaled Balkio and all the management team. We feel in Airbus very proud to have accompanied that growth. By delivering with our partner Thales Alenia Space the highest reliability, highest quality satellites, enable you to grow. We wish you to keep further growing, and of course we wish you to keep partnering with us. We have, I think that it goes much beyond a customer supplier relationship. It really goes like a partnership, and we have your teams with us on our premises working together. So, long life to Badar 7. I just would like to say that we have received telemetry on the satellite, and all the initialization sequence is working well. So the team in Toulouse is now taking that little baby, a big satellite, jewel of technology, and managing the first operations, the early operations. Congratulations to ISRO also for this very successful launch. We've partnered with you, and we enjoy working with ISRO, and we wish you a lot of success also for this launch. Thank you.
What a fantastic launch. What a great day. What else can I add to this? Congratulations to Arabsat. Congratulations to ISRO for this magnificent result. Your next satellite is in space, and will soon expand your fleet, because we know it's only working when it's fully working and everybody is happy. We're very pleased for you. Well done with a superb achievement. Best wishes as well to everybody who will work the coming days, the coming weeks, to get the satellites operational. It's not an easy one, and they need all our support. In terms of today's magnificent launch, I would like to thank Stefan and all the Arianespace team. It worked like a clock, so noblesse oblige, very important. A big thanks to the industrial teams at Thales Alenia Space, and of course at Airbus for the work they did. We worked very well together, and the result is there. Thanks for the commitment. Arabsat-6B is an outstanding project, and behind that are always outstanding people. It's a great pleasure to cooperate with everybody that are around here. Very professional. Really pleased to also support the next launch of Arabsat-3, the satellite we're working on today, and I'm really looking forward to the same level of success that we reached today. Our air teams will soon be in Riyadh to start getting the tests done for the payload, and I hope we'll soon confirm the in-orbit performance for you, so we're all happy and you can grow your business as you wish to do. Thanks very much.
Chairman and CEO of Arianespace, Mr. Sivan Israr, Mr. Bernard, my colleagues from ISRO stationed here, and those of my colleagues who are viewing this telecast from India, my dear countrymen and other dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all here, and very good morning to the Indians viewing the Doordarshan. The Chairman ISRO, Mr. Kiran Kumar, could not make it here to witness this launch. However, he is stationed back at MCF, closely following this launch. He has conveyed his greetings through me. Today, this evening, I am delighted to witness this glorious launch of Ariane that carried our GSAT-15 satellite and the co-passenger Arabsat-6B successfully. As always, Arianespace provided a magnificent launch with perfection. I congratulate once again Mr. Stephen and his team for such a wonderful and flawless launch. I would also like to congratulate Arabsat team for the successful launch of their Arabsat-6B satellite. When I stand and talk here, my memory goes back 52 years. Yes, it was again like today, an evening in the month of an Indian Diwali, November 1963. As a 5-year-old boy, I was awestruck and with curiosity to look at the golden yellow cloud in the evening sky from my native village, Kodavadi, at the remote corner of India. Later, I came to know through Air India radio that it was due to a sodium vapor released by a French payload on the top of an Indian sounding rocket launched from Tumba, another tiny village in South India. It heralded the birth of Indian space program. From that modest beginning, we have grown together as a spacefaring nations. Working relations of ISRO and Arianespace graduated further in the year 1981. It was the first qualification launch of Ariane 4, carrying the Indian spacecraft. That was ISRO's first experimental communication satellite in space, namely Ariane Passenger Payload Experiment (APPLE) in June 1981. Today's launch is ISRO's 19th mission with Arianespace. In the meantime, ISRO also has launched 4 French spacecraft using PSLV. Thanks to such a long association, our team is quite familiar with working with the Arianespace and the launch activities with the Arianespace, and I understand through my colleagues, the support that we get from Arianespace for preparing the satellite launch is also excellent. After today's successful launch, we move towards the next phase of series of maneuvers with GSAT-15 for positioning it in the designated orbit location and payload commissioning. Our team back in ISRO in India is working in the satellite mission operations. Today's launch of GSAT-15 will enable ISRO to provide continuity of service to Indian users in KU band. The navigation payload Gahan of GSAT-15 will provide in-orbit backup to ensure safety of life navigation services in civil aviation sector, as well as other location-based services to various users in the Indian region. As you are aware, India has already obtained certification from Airport Authority of India for safety of life operations with operational Gagan payloads using GSAT-8 and GSAT-10. I would like to thank all ISRO centers and units and Indian industries that contributed for GSAT-15. ISRO has embarked a very ambitious satellite program for the coming years to meet the increased communication, navigation, remote sensing, meteorology, science, and the exploration requirements of emerging India. Just to indicate a glimpse of it, with respect to targeted 7 satellite constellation of Indian National Satellite System, 4 satellites are already in the orbit. 5th satellite, IRNS-1E, is ready to go for the launch anytime. IRNS-1F and 1G are in the advanced stage of integration and will be ready for the launch soon. With respect to communication, after GSAT-15, we have other 2 communication satellites, GSAT-17 and 18, getting ready for the launch again by an Ariane vehicle during the next year. And the realization of both these satellites are in very advanced stage. 2 more satellites to be launched by GSLV are also in the anvil. Indian Space Workers PSLV has been lined up for the several of Earth observation missions. In short, Indian space program will continue to witness a series of missions in the years to come. In this backdrop, once again, I thank Arianespace for providing us a spectacular launch of GSAT-15 satellite. It is a great Diwali gift to the people of India back. Before I sign off, I'm happy to announce that GSAT-15 satellite signal has been acquired by MCF Hassan, and the initialization commands are in process, and the satellite health is hale and healthy. Thanks again. Till we come back here for the next launch, goodbye and good night.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. Nous avons réalisé ce soir là au CSG.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It was a beautiful launch here at the Guiana Space Center. I'd like to congratulate all the teams that worked on this launcher, teams from Arianespace and from the different industrial companies. This launcher has once again shown its capacity and reliability, expected reliability for Ariane 5, but such an exceptional performance. We're so proud here at the Guiana Space Center to have this launcher being operated from here. I'd like to take this opportunity for thanking all the satellite teams who came to work here, Airbus teams, Thales teams, ISRO teams, Arabsat teams. I'd like to thank them for the trust they placed in the Guiana Space Center. This trust is trust to Arianespace, of course, but we here at the Guiana Space Center, we support them, we provide them with facilities for them to prepare the satellite, and I hope that the facilities we place at their disposal are well appreciated. So once again, thank you very much and congratulations for this launch, because now you have means to develop your activities. I don't want to forget and thank all the industrial companies present on the range and all the CNES teams and all the teams working at CNES, working on the launcher. It's the 10th launch this year. That was a lot of work, a lot of personal investment, and once again, we have to deal with great professionals. I'd like to thank all these teams for their commitment. And I'd like to thank our partners. First, the French state, represented here by Mr. Prefect, placing at our disposal all the safety and security services and agencies, because this launch, well, the range would not be able to operate without this partnership with the different security, official security services from the state. So thank you, Mr. Prefect. A few words to our elected officials from Guyana. We know that this is a pre-electoral campaign, but they're always here, meaning that the range is important for them, is important for French Guiana, and French Guiana is very important for the Guiana Space Center. So once again, this is a very solid relationship. The Guiana Space Center is open to French Guiana. This is not Guantanamo. People are working here. I see my friend Antoine Caran is smiling. He understands why that's kind of a private joke. But people from Guyana work here, and we owe them a lot. And I think we'll be able to develop the Ariane 6 project only thanks to the support of Guyana and its elected officials. So thank you again. Once again, we all enjoyed this launch, and later, downstairs, I hope you'll be with us to celebrate. Thank you very much indeed.
Chers amis, quelques mots pour conclure.
Dear friends, a few words
I would like
to
take this opportunity to thank ISRO. ISRO has just announced that GSAT-17 and GSAT-18 will be launched by Ariane, And so I really want to thank ISRO and Mr. Anadurai for this great announcement. I must say that Ariane 5 has now done the job for 15, but we have had today another very good news for Ariane 5. This news has been announced by Intelsat, and Intelsat has decided to go for a dedicated single launch on January the 27th, to open in January 2016, to open next year, the Ariane year, the 27 January 2016. Bon, donc l'année Ariane commencera le 27 janvier 2016 avec un lancement.
So we will start a single launch. This was announced this morning by Intel.
ISRO annonce ce soir deux nouveaux contrats pour Ariane GSAT-17 et GSAT-18. We will be back here in CSG during the night from the 1st December to the 2nd December with Vega. It will be the third Vega of the year, and it will be for our dear customer and partner ESA for LISA Pathfinder. And it will be a very exciting mission. Donc, merci encore à tous. Merci à nos clients Arabsat et ISRO et à tous et à toutes.
Arabsat and ISRO, and we wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Well, that'll do it for over some final shots of a final launch replay. Hopefully, maybe not, because we didn't get the replay earlier. However, we'll say goodbye from Kourou, where the big news is that Ariane 5 has once again delivered, finishing out her year as two new telecom sats begin life orbiting Arabsat-6B, soon to be Batter-7, and GSAT-15. 69 straight successes now for Ariane 5. She's closing in on the record set by Ariane 4 of 74 straight successes. And here we'll have a replay. She keeps rolling. Arianespace next launch, as Mr. Israel said, Vega on December 1st. We will be here. We hope you will be too. Until then, Joshua Jample, on behalf of everybody here at the Space Base, thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to being with you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
I wanna